Tips for visiting Quebec City during winter. First of all, this is one of my favorite North American winter destinations. It's absolutely beautiful, and I just can't say enough good things about it. I just love it there. But there's a couple things that I've learned that can make your trip experience a little bit better. And the first thing is, it's a very walkable area, but there are quite a few hills. So you'll just need to get used to that. Luckily, where I live in Brooklyn, there are a lot of hills, and it's not as dramatic as San Francisco, but it's kind of like New York where there's hills. You'll get used to walking. Which brings me to tip number 2. You may want to invest in some little lightweight crampons that you can just put over your shoes, your boots, whatever. You're not going to need them all the time, but there are a couple spots where it's really steep, and if it recently rained, it could freeze over and you'll be slipping. None of the stores that we went by sold them, so you can just get a couple of these. I'll link them below. Number 3, it's a French-speaking province, so they speak a lot of French. It can be a little intimidating, but a few basic phrases and a smile is going to go a long way. Bonjour is definitely really nice. Merci for thanks. S'il vous plaît is please. And then parlez-vous français or parlez-vous anglais would be nice because it's how do you speak English? But again, don't feel intimidated if you don't speak French. If you do, it's definitely a bonus. Number 4, if you're coming during the winter and you have the ability to cherry pick, November to December has a really cool Christmas market that takes over the whole square. It's absolutely huge. It's a ton of fun. It's so romantic and beautiful. It's one of my favorite things. It's like you're being in a snow globe village. In February, there's a week where they have Carnival, which is just like basically turning the whole area into an amusement park. I've never been. I hear it's amazing. Number 5, there is a wonderful food tour that goes through all of Old Quebec City, and I highly recommend doing that on your very first day. The reason why I like doing it is because 1, you get a lay of the land, you're gonna walk around. 3, you're gonna eat at all these different restaurants. They have 5 different restaurants that they take you to. You have 5 full courses, and they even have a drink pairing. And what's great about it is then you have access to a local who knows the history. You can ask all kinds of questions, but based off of the things that you did like and the things that you don't like, you can ask all these questions about what are you doing, what's on your itinerary, what's the best time to do X, Y, and Z. This is my favorite travel tip. Anytime we go to a new destination, I always try to do a food tour on my very first day. And then number 6 would be to get outside of Old Quebec City. There's a really great area called St. Roch where you can have a lot of different microbreweries, get a much more local feel for it. It's really close by. Again, it's a really walkable area. It'll just give you a different experience of what it's really like outside of the Old Quebec City that you might not otherwise get. Number 7, another tip that I would do is go ice canoeing. This is the only place in the world where you can do ice canoeing as a tourist. I was absolutely intimidated by doing it, but the tour company, which I'll link below, does a really great job of making you feel comfortable. My wife and I did it. We're not really canoers. We're not super athletic or anything. We just went ahead and gave it a shot. They provide you all of the things that you need to wear. You know, you're gonna want to dress in layers, but we just wear sweatpants. We wear thermal sweatpants and coverings, and then they give you extra stuff to put on top of all your clothes so that way you don't get wet, so that way you don't get cold. And what's crazy about it is the boost that they give you. If you dip them in the water, you're not gonna feel a thing, but it is such a fun, unique experience. Again, you can't do it anywhere else in the world. It's pretty challenging. The part that's really challenging isn't the rowing. It's actually when you get on top of ice and you have to kind of push your leg, and you just get really tired. It's not super hard, you just get tired and it's just exhausting. But luckily they have the guides there. They're phenomenal. It's a wonderful time. I cannot recommend it enough. And it's unique. This is the only place you can do it. So I definitely would do that if you're there during the winter. Number 8 is if it's a super famous restaurant. Some of these are pretty small, so you might want to make reservations in advance. Luckily, we just had the 2 people, so we didn't have too much of an issue, but sometimes these places are intimate and small. And so the next tip is actually tipping itself. Yeah, you do tip when you go to restaurants. Typically, it's just 15%. You don't need to do anything more than that, and that's for excellent service. And then lastly, if you end up wanting to go to Montmorency, we rented a car, so we just drove. But one of the things that we did see was if you go to the very top of Montmorency, you can walk your way down. Whereas if you get dropped off at the bottom, you have to walk your way up. It's really steep. I don't know how many steps there are, but there's a lot and it's really steep. So if you do have to take public transportation, get dropped off at the top, that way you can walk down and then call a cab or whatever. We rented a car, so it didn't really matter for us. But yeah, those are the 10 tips that we have for Quebec City. If you got a tip that you want to add, please leave it in the comments below. And if you like this content, consider subscribing. We have a wonderful video that talks about our itinerary, all the different places that we went, restaurants, hotels, all the activities. Yeah, give that a shot. If you're heading to Quebec City, I highly recommend it. It's absolutely beautiful. It's one of my favorite places, and I love it during the winter.